this shit. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. Check, works 11 break. So this is the 4th time that police officers have driven around this corner. Huh. It's just more harassment. It's just more. They just told me in my ears they're trying to normalize you seeing police officers all the time. But that's not normal. It'll never be normal. The idea, so they said if you're used to being stalked by officers, the only way to get you to stop thinking that you're being stalked is to show you more police officers. So they're trying to get me to, I told them that the only way, they're coming back. I just seen them in the corner of my eye coming back down around the corner. The only way to get you to normalize seeing police officers is if they show you more police officers. But that's not reality. Reality is, go fuck yourself, piece of shit. You think I want to know you know my name? He just said, have a good day, John. Rapist? What a piece of shit. You think that's cool? Telling somebody you know who they are and then driving away, you think that's not invasive? That makes a person feel good? It doesn't. You tell them, hey, John, we finally are going to acknowledge we know who you are. We know that you've been complaining. We understand you feel like you're being stalked. So the appropriate way wouldn't be to drive past him and say his name, to acknowledge that after 5 years, you know who he is and that he's been stalked and he's been telling that people are harassing him. That's not how you introduce the Madison Police Department to the guy who's been complaining for 5 years that he's being harassed in the community. He's being stalked by the community. He's telling that there's technology in his body. That's not how you introduce the Madison Police Department to the person who's been complaining and has been told no one knows who he is. That's how you do it? You stalk him a little bit. You keep showing police cars to him repeatedly, and that's how you get him. You introduce yourselves. It's almost as if you didn't want to admit that this person was even known, or you didn't want him to have an opportunity to tell. And now that you do have to, by some weight, some gravity is compelling you to tell him that you know who you are, that you know who he is. You chose to acknowledge that you know who that person is. And it's like you barely wanted to. So the way you showed you barely wanted to acknowledge who he was by driving by him, and for the first time that he can remember, say his fucking name to him. Say, have a good day, John. You're the first, whoever that was the first cop who openly acknowledged he knew who I was that I couldn't identify. I had no idea who that police officer was, and he's the first person from the Madison Police Department to choose to acknowledge that they had any idea that I existed, or I've been telling that I'm being stalked and harassed by police officers. The 4 police officers, so one cop drove past here in the last 10 minutes, went around the corner. I told them to go fuck themselves because I was positive it was more of that stalking, harassment behavior from the police department. So 2 minutes later, another cop drove past. I said the same thing to him. That cop decided to turn around down there, come back this way, and drive this way. I said the same, go fuck yourself again. Then, about 2.5 minutes later, several more cops drove past. 2 cops together drove past, came around the corner. I told both of those cops to go fuck themselves. Then, one police officer decided to turn around and come back this way And he's the guy who told me, "Have a good day, John." And he used my name like he knew who I was, without telling me who he was, and how exactly he knew my name, which couldn't be. I don't have a name written on my clothes. So somehow this person from somewhere knew who I was. And if it was years ago, he should have told me. If it was 2 days ago, they should have told me. If it was yesterday, they decided to acknowledge who I was, they should have told me. If it was something I said that got their attention, they should have said something. Hey, we're telling the police department who you are. We're telling our employees who you are, so they identify you in public. And they know something about you. Whatever it is that they know about you that gives them a way to identify you when they see you, that's what we told them. But instead, they decided to, without introduction, without proper introduction, allow me to know that they know who I am. Which is more like stalking behavior. Like a stalker would walk up to you and tell you, "I know who you are," without telling you how they knew or who they are. So there's just more stalking harassment. This cop thinks he's incredibly intelligent. They think they can. It's not. If someone just said in my ears, "It's paranoia. You're paranoia," or "You're incredibly intelligent." Paranoia is an awareness. I firmly believe that paranoia is a lie that psychologists came up with to label someone mentally, inept, so that they can continue to harass them. So if you can label someone inept, if you can and convince the public of a cause, you can continue to do the bad things you did to them before. But I believe paranoia in reality is somebody is very aware of minor things that people are doing to them. So it's an awareness. So it's an awareness of events around you that people who aren't in your standing where you're standing will call you, could deny. So if they can't see your point of view, they could deny what you saw. If they're not literally standing right here and looking over there, and if I see a person walk around those trees and somebody standing over there heard me say that, and they couldn't see a person over there, they could call me a liar, right? They could say, nobody's walking over there. So my point is, somebody called someone like me paranoid because they couldn't see the person over there walking that I could clearly see. They can't tell that from my experiences or the history I've had in life that police officers have been stalking me and harassing me, or people in the community have been making faces as they drive past to further the harassment, to make you feel like while you're telling, no one believes you. So that it's discouragement. It takes, and it also, I'm smart, so I'm not easily discouraged. It just makes it, someone is using technology to make it very hard for me to use my memory and my intelligence to explain myself. So when I see somebody making faces at me when I'm holding a camera like they don't believe what I'm saying, it just makes it harder for me to speak, to tell what I think about what they just did, and to continue to talk about whatever I was trying to say, which someone just allowed me to remember. So what I was saying was, the police department decided to use the dumbest excuse. I'm sorry. The police department decided to use the dumbest excuses to dumbest way to introduce themselves. To give me the information that some people in the police department know who you are. And without giving me more information, it leaves you wondering, questioning, what finally caused me to be acknowledged by the Madison Police Department, enough for a random police officer to identify me on site, which is not normal. It's what do you call that? When you can identify somebody on site, somebody gave you information about them. And whatever that information was, it hasn't changed for 5 years. So for 5 or 6 years, it has not changed. 2019, that would be 5 years. The information about this person has not changed for over 5 years. So what suddenly made a difference between 5 years ago and today is worth noting. It's worth telling the person that you finally decide to acknowledge that they exist, or you know who they are as a police officer, a random police officer, you know who they are. What finally changed is worth stopping your squad car and letting them know, hey, we finally acknowledge what you've been saying for the last 5 years, and we're finally letting you know we can identify you, and we know who you are. We know what stories you've told. We know who we can identify you in the community. We can identify you. So whatever change happened, it is worth telling the person that you can now identify them when you see them, or you look like a stalker. You look like a contributing stalker. You look like, this is what stalkers do. They walk up to people who don't know them, who aren't famous. I'm not famous, right? Nothing's changed from my point of view. I'm still the same person. 5 years, nothing has changed. No sign that I'm famous or the police department has acknowledged who I am. So to me, you're acting like a stalker. I haven't given anybody in public a way to identify me. No one approaches me. Nobody says hi to me. Nobody says, hey, John, we know who you are. Hey, John, we heard your story. Hey, John, this, or anything of that nature. But instead, this officer decided to use more stalking behavior to tell me he knew who he was. He knew who I was. It's harassment. It's police harassment. That officer was probably gay, and he decided to further the harassment because he thinks like I was too dumb. I might be too dumb to recognize the stalking behavior or harassment when I see it. If I was too dumb to not believe my grandmother, they just told me in my ears, if you were too dumb to not believe your grandmother when she told you had to have sex with gay people, or your cousin, if you were too dumb to believe a pedophile who walked in your room and pulled his pants down and told you to have sex with him, if you were too dumb to not believe that, then you might be too dumb to recognize harassment when you see it. So that was Madison Police Department. Madison Police Department harassment. Stalking harassment. To make you feel like your life's been... And they just told me we're grooming you for fame. When you get famous, people you don't know are going to approach you and say hi to you. But I'm famous, so I can justify... if I'm famous, I can justify that somebody who I don't know is approaching me and harassing me. They just told me, oh, you're so happy now, aren't you? You're so happy that you're famous now. I'm not happy. Life is good without fame. Life is so good. When I finally found energy, I found an incredible opportunity to have the best life possible. I don't need to be famous. These cockroaches are furthering the harassment. What do you call that crap? When you don't get what you want, so you make something else. You double. These people are trying to double down on. So I didn't turn out to be gay. I didn't turn out to have implants. Oh, they're riding they're jumping on board what's happening next. So now you're famous. Now you're excited. Now you're gonna be somebody. Now you got everything going for you. You're happy for yourself, right? And we were there to help you the whole time. So they're trying to act like they're turning the tables. I'm sorry about that. They just told me to pick my nose. They electrocuted my nose, picked my nose, and erased my memory to stop me from thinking, don't pick your nose, you're on camera. So you just use implants to to erase my memory tells me don't pick your nose on camera. So instead of allowing me to remember not to pick my nose on camera, they told me they used technology to get me to pick my nose without thinking about it, without remembering not to. But anyways, so these people are trying to jump on the wagon. They're switching ships. They're switching directions. So they tried to propel me to commit crimes. They tried to propel me to have sex with gay people. They tried to propel me to hate the community, but it didn't work. So instead, they're propelling me to have sex with. They're using technology to erase my memory. They just told me we just did something for 20 seconds, and we caused you to make a video for 20 minutes. They're using technology to stop me from compressing my thoughts. You need your memory. So without your memory, you can't compress what you want to say. So if you want to say something very intelligent, you want to say something very quickly, you need your memory to do it. So what was I going to say? Yeah, so that's how the Madison Police Department decided to treat me. Further the stalking harassment. I guarantee you I'm not famous. I guarantee you nothing I've said or done in the past has changed my public notoriety, because people still treat me the same. So it's invasive. And they just said, well, we're just saying hi to you. But for 5 years, you've denied that random police officers in the police department even knew who I was. So you created a psychology in my mind using several different police officers who denied knowing who I was. And in a quick moment, you decided to erase or change that psychology, change the thought process, change what I've experienced for 5 years into something different. A random police officer did know who you were. And it's stalking. It's not fame. It didn't come from fame. My notoriety, that officer knowing who I was, didn't come from fame, unless they're hiding the truth. They're hiding that they knew who I was for the last 5 years. They're hiding that people are talking about me across town. They're hiding that something from the community that's in the community from me. And allowing people to continue to harass me and stalk me everywhere I go. So if that was the case for the last 5 years, that's a terrible police department contributing to gay culture, stalking, sexual harassment, or intimidation and violence is a terrible police department. And if you're hiding that from me and you're hiding that from the rest of the public, that makes you a contributor to the behavior. And that's what that officer just did. He's a contributor to the behavior. Even if he's trying to say that we now know who you are, you spent 5 years telling me that that wasn't true. You spent 5 years telling me that we don't know who you are. And since in the last 5 years, nothing about me has changed, I doubt you can't call it fame. You can't justify acknowledging who someone is because they're famous anymore. You're going to have to acknowledge that you knew who they were the whole time and you were lying about it to that person. And we were using a large group of people in the community to also lie to that person about knowing who they are. So you can continue to harass them. And when they told the police that they were being harassed in the community, the police department wouldn't believe it or say we don't believe you because nobody knows who you are. So for 5 years, they could continue to harass you, stalk you, intimidate you, be violent towards you because nobody was acknowledging that they knew who you are, so they couldn't justify that we know who you are. Or they couldn't justify you're being harassed by anybody because nobody knows who you are. So that's how you get away with it. That's how you get away with harassment and stalking and intimidation and violence for any culture in America. You use the police department, you tell lies to the people, you tell lies to the victim. And hopefully that hatred, well, they build a hatred. They build a hatred for the police department. They build a hatred for the people that are harassing them, because no one is being honest with them, and they feel helpless. And when people feel helpless, they choose anything besides what they've been choosing as the next course of, the following decision making, as a option. And the next option would be violence, right? If telling doesn't work, if complaining doesn't work, and you continue to be harassed, what do you choose next? And you teach people from the news what other people chose to do, violence. You hope that in 5 years, over the course of 5 years of stalking, torture, intimidation, and violence from police officers and people in the community, they choose to be violent. Correct? You're hoping that person chooses violence, right? We teach it. Well, we don't teach it directly. We show examples of people who claim to be harassed or who claim to be unhappy. What they chose to do, they chose violence. And that's what these people hoped for me. And they continue to hope for it, because that officer continued the stalking harassment instead of the mature, appropriate thing to do would be to say, hey, we know who you are, and this is how I know who you are. This is how I know who you are after all these years. Isn't that crazy that people are so, that we live in, we are who we are. Well, we are, that people are doing this, are capable of what I just said. Isn't that crazy? That there are people who live for their culture above the law, American laws or American expectations, and they were able to do it. Well, it's happening that people do these things. Isn't that? And then, oh, that's the other thing that happens. So from a distance, somebody will make a very, very loud noise, right? A very, very loud noise. And it will be some woman displaying like her breasts, right? Some woman displaying her breasts or moving body parts to get your attention, like a loud laugh. They want you to look in their direction, and then they act scary. I don't have any interest. So they placate like you're violent. Well, they act like you have intentions to harm people, or they show you sexual interest or something sexual in nature. They grab your attention from a distance, and then they show you something sexual in nature right away. So, and then jiggle your breasts, and then walk normal, and then pretend like they're gonna hurt you if they start telling on you. So if you notice that they're gonna tell on you, what you do is act like they're the threat. So if he doesn't want to have sex, he must want to kill me, or he must want to be violent towards me, or you must want to take something. But you don't harass somebody to tell them you want to have sex with them. So the gay community believes in harassment before they have sex with somebody who's not gay. So they can't help themselves but be attracted to people who aren't gay. It's impossible. There's not enough gay people. They're gonna find somebody who's not gay that's attractive. So what they do before they have sex with them is they harass that person, they intimidate that person, they're violent towards that person, so that when they do have sex with them, they can always tell themselves, I harassed the hell out of them, I did something violent towards them, and very mean. So that girl started making a noise from a distance and then did something sexual in nature. So you get a little bit of harassment, and then someone used implants to electrocute my ear canal. So electrocute his ear canal, grab his attention at a distance, do something, when he looks, do something with your breath, like move, make her breasts were like, as she walked, so they vibrated, and they drew my attention to her breasts. And then she started walking normally. Well, no, I'm sorry. She kept walking that way, but after a split second, my attention returned to her face. To go fuck yourself. There you go. E9872. My attention. They were gonna do that. They were perfectly waiting for me to tell. So if I decided to assault those people, the cop was gonna be waiting around the corner to stop me from hurting that person or to stop me from escaping what I did. So if I decided to hurt those people, they do that too. So they set up an opportunity for me to do a criminal act, and then they leave police officers nearby to make sure I don't escape gravity, right? So they reverse physics. They took the heterosexual community's like acknowledgement that we exist freely and we exist as men and women working together to improve ourselves, and they use physics to justify their actions. So those two people were gay. That woman tried to get me to think about her breasts, have sexual thoughts, and be angry at the same time. So the harassment, her coughing, and my memory that people keep doing that is annoying. My annoyance plus her shaking her breasts as she walked down the street is sexual. So I'm annoyed, and she's giving me sexual imagery. And those two things together could produce thoughts of rape. Right? You're angry and you're thinking about sex. When people are angry, they think about sex, you have a rapist, correct? That's correct. So they gave me enough time to think about committing a crime from all the way down here. And when that didn't work and they heard me telling, which any rational person would do, they decided to act like they were scared, like I was a danger to them. So it's like psychological mind games using acting and technology to hope that somebody commits a crime that you want them to commit. And projecting like somebody's gonna hurt you in broad daylight with a camera recording him and you're right next to somebody is doubtful. I don't look dangerous at all. I'm very identifiable. Very identifiable. I wear earmuffs wherever I go. I'm not getting away. I won't escape gravity. Trust me, it's impossible. And I don't want to have sex with gay people, which is what I know those people were. Those people like open relationships. So that guy has a girlfriend, but he thinks she's free to have sex with whoever she wants. But in order to do that, she has to get their attention. So gay people have open relationships, or that's how they live. And in order to allow each other to have sex with whoever they want to have sex with, they have to force someone who doesn't believe in three people relationships to be involved in a 3-person relationship. They harass that person and give them sexual imagery. And if they don't want to, they treat that person like they're dangerous. More harassment. So either you have sex with us or we continue to harass you. That's the gay community. And that's been happening since I've been on probation. And it was happening in prison, but there were no women involved. It was just dudes. All dudes trying to have sex with me, gay dudes. And if they weren't trying to, gay dudes who acted heterosexual would try to beat me up or intimidate me, emasculate me as much as possible, and then send a gay dude to try to be friends with me. So that I build a relationship with a gay dude. And now they're trying to tell me why. The reason is there are gay couples who like having sex with anybody they see. So you have to be okay with that. But I'm not okay with it. I don't want to have sex with gay people. I don't want to be harassed and stalked by the police department. I don't want these implants in my body. And I'm not going to commit rape for any reason, or have sex with gay people, or anything of that nature. I'm going to keep telling.